Hi, I'm Tony Soares. I'm going to be showing you how I make one of my BrownWare clay bodies. It's a real rugged body, lots of beautiful colors in it, and this is how I mix it in a cement mixing trough, and I'll be showing you all the little techniques I use. So this is my BrownWare clay. It gets really flashy colors. Most of this stuff is just, it seems to be really fine sand with a little bit of clay to make it stick, and it's pretty plastic for being as dirty and sandy as it is. I'm going to show you how to mix this stuff up. I'm going to put it in this big cement mixing water trough, let it soak for a day, and then the next day I'll come back and I'm going to shovel it into a cement mixer and then pour it off into some screens and into buckets. We're going to let that clay soak, absorb up all the water. The clay has to be real dry for it to work right. That way it'll hydrate a lot better this way. These are my clay troughs that I use to pour my clay into. I have several, but this is a bunch of cinder blocks that have been roughly cemented together, and then plaster of Paris. This is a plaster of Paris bottom. It's about 4 or 5 inches thick, and I've used a number of bags of 100-pound bags. But that's what I pour my clay into to get the moisture out of it. Let it dehydrate. It takes about a week in the summertime, sometimes 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a month in the wintertime when it's real cold. I'll show you the rest in a little bit. Okay, so our next step is to get the clay that's in this trough into here, a little bit at a time. It'll probably make about 5 loads. I'm going to fill up 3 trash cans, but first I'm going to pour it through a screen here. I'll show a little bit more detail in a minute. Get this clay, I haven't really stirred it up. I'm just shoveling it in. Notice the cement mixer is not on, so we don't get the shovel caught in there and tear your arms off. This clay has all kinds of rocks and sticks and who knows what's in there. Now I'm going to add some of the buckets of water, clay water. If it's too thick, it won't go through the screen. Now I'm going to turn this on. Gonna let it stir for a little while. I'll pour it out in just a minute. So after about 3 minutes, I'm gonna turn it off, and then I'm gonna quickly pour the clay through this 1/4 inch mesh screen. So that's what's left over. There's a lot of sand and sticks. A lot of stuff you wouldn't want in your clay. But I'm going to do this about probably 10-15 times. There's still some sand and rock left over. I'll just keep piling more clay and water in there, and then I'll sift it again. Alright, so here's my secondary screening. This is it's a little bit coarser than a window screen. I believe it's a strainer from an Asian food shop. You can get the noodle strainers. And then I got this is the original mesh that it went through, was about an 1/8 inch hardware cloth mesh. Now we're down to maybe 1/4 or 1/16 of an inch or something. So secondary screening, because I don't want this clay to be super coarse, but it's not going to be really fine either. You definitely want to stir up all the material inside your tub so that it does get picked up and run through. You want a lot of temper in this clay. That way you don't have to preheat the pots. There's gold in them heels. And I'll just keep doing that for a while. Alright, so if you have some clay that doesn't like to settle down, it'll stay all murky for a long time. I usually add some white vinegar, apple cider vinegar, pour that in there, and give it a few hours or maybe a day. And that should make all your clay particles drop to the bottom. And there should be some clear water on the top here. Probably by tomorrow morning I'll dump that clear water off. Okay, so this is day 3, actually day 4 if you count digging the clay, soaking the clay, sifting the clay. Now we're pouring the clay off into the forms to suck the moisture out. But this is all clear water here, and we're going to dump that clear water off. That way your plaster, or you could also do this method in some sandy soil, but that way it doesn't have to suck up as much water out of the clay. So get it to where most of the clear water is off. We can leave a little bit, that way when we stir it up, there's a bunch of foam on the top of this one. I'll make another clay video or two, a little bit easier method. Alright, so after you dump that off, then you're going to take your drill with the paddle bit, drywall. You can get this at Home Depot, Lowe's. They have it's for mixing drywall mud or clay. Start out kind of slow so it could jerk your arm really hard if you're not careful. Get all that sand mixed up in there. And this one's about stripped out. I have to shorten it. that's all stirred up, then I'm gonna start pouring it into the other bucket, and then I'll start transferring it all to the forms. This way all your buckets are the same equal mix if you keep filling them all up, stirring them around, pouring them in. So this is the plaster forms that I showed you earlier. I've covered it with a bed sheet, and the clay is going to go right onto the bed sheet. I'll show you the transfer here in a second. Make my work a little bit lighter. I'm going to just fill both of these up and probably a third one. Alright, so both of these are full, about, I don't know, 4 inches deep with liquid clay. I'm going to let this sit for about maybe a week, maybe a little bit less. It's summertime, it's been pretty warm, it's finally cooling off. But I'm going to cover it with a sheet. The other half of the sheet anyways. And that'll keep most of the debris out of it. I'm going to cover this up to keep the sun off of it. That way the top layer doesn't dry and the bottom layer stay wet. And this is how I make most of my clay. Not always. Sometimes I'll grind it on a metate and be more traditional, but I think they were doing it this way too here in the Southwest, if not further south, Mexico. There's some evidence of pouring clay and round temper, not granulated temper. But anyways, this works. It's really easy. It beats grinding it on a metate. You'll wear your elbows out and you breathe all that dust. The only thing you gotta watch is when you lift these up, especially out here in the desert, sometimes a rattlesnake will be in there. Most of the time rodents, but where there's rodents you'll find rattlesnakes, so be careful. Alright, so this is the clay, and it is ready. So it just peels off in these big sheets. One side you have the coarse temper, the other side it's kind of smooth, so that'll have to be wedged. But what I do is I just put it into trash bags, 3 millimeters, and I have a bunch of trash cans where I keep it stored, and the trash cans are buried underground, so I put these inside the trash cans and it stays for a couple of years at a time. And one other thing, I don't wedge it until I'm ready to use the clay. It stores much better in this state the way it is. But if you're going to wedge it, which you have to wedge the temper, it's just a whole lot of this. You want to get all them sand particles, temper particles, whatever, blended together. And it takes a little bit more than that, but that helps blend it all together for some great clay. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.